Good morning. I'm Kathy Barks Hoffman of Martin Waymeyer, a Lansing public relations firm that's been helping the Michigan manufacturers and the Nature Conservancy in Michigan set up and conduct this series of webinars on sustainable manufacturing. I want to welcome you to the third in the series of 4 webinars on manufacturing sustainability. Our focus today is on hearing from some of the manufacturers in Michigan about the ways that they've increased their sustainability and the benefits that they've seen come from that. One of the reasons we want to do this series of seminars is because the Nature Conservancy thinks it's likely that government actions will require more sustainable practices from manufacturers. I know that sounds like just one more problem at a time when you're scrambling to find enough workers, meet ever higher manufacturing standards, and compete in a global economy. But we want to show you, with the help of manufacturers right here in Michigan who have begun moving towards greater sustainability, that starting down this road can save you money, help you meet your customers' requirements, become a more attractive place for millennials and Gen Zers to work, and improve life in your communities. The MMA and the TNC want to help manufacturers take the lead and control their own path forward on sustainability so they can stay competitive while reducing emissions. Our first webinar in our series in December focused on an overview of the sustainable manufacturing landscape, while our January one had speakers discussing the state and federal requirements likely to be enacted in the future. We'll tell you more about our final webinar in March later on in the session. During the discussion, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A feature on Zoom, and please be sure to add your name and your affiliation. You'll have a chance to get some answers to those questions from our panelists throughout and near the end of today's hour-long session. During the webinar, you'll see some poll questions. Oh, never mind. I don't think we're polling this time. Sorry. You're allowed to record this event, and we will have a recording available afterward in case you want to review what was said or show it to others in your company. And now I'd like to introduce those who are going to be speaking with us this hour. They include Kristen Seimen, the Chief Sustainability Officer and Vice President of Sustainable Workplaces at General Motors, who will speak about the moves that GM has made towards sustainability. We have 2 people with us today from Capital Steel and Wire in Mason, just outside Lansing, President Kelly Preston and Manufacturing Director Fred Render. They'll talk about the solar panels they've installed and how that has helped their company. Stephen Holty is sustainability leader at Hemlock Semiconductor Operations near Saginaw and a member of the Michigan Council on Climate Solutions, where he co-chaired the Energy Intensive Industry Work Group. He's helping promote his company's Green Print initiative to save energy and trim costs. Carolyn Lythen, who is MMA's Director of Environmental and Regulatory Policy, is going to talk about the state's Healthy Climate Plan and MMA's role in helping shape it. She'll also be posing your questions to our panelists. Finally, Madhu Anderson, Director of Government Relations at the Nature Conservancy in Michigan, will tell you a little bit about our next webinar and how to sign up. I'm now going to turn this over to Kristen.
Kathy or Randy, I don't know if you can hear me, but it will not let me turn my video on.
Let me see what I can do about that.
I can just talk if you want. Says the host has stopped it.
I just sent
There
you.
I got
There
it.
we go.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
No worries. No worries. Good morning. And I think you have my slides.
I do. Here we go.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So as they're bringing them up, perfect. Thank you. So thanks for having me today. As was said, I'm Kristen Seimen, the Chief Sustainability Officer and Vice President of Sustainable Workplaces at General Motors. You know, it's really an exciting time for us as we've made some pretty major commitments over the past year and a half, and I'm really proud to work for a company that's really continuing to not only innovate and bring great mobility products and services to market, but also transform how we have a positive impact on the world. If you want to go, actually, you can skip the second slide and go to the third slide. You already saw who I am. So back in 2017, GM announced our vision to create a world with zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. So we've been working on this for a while. This has led to really an important business growth and innovation in areas for us, such as autonomous and electric vehicles. And this vision is really what's driving us towards our future. Go to the next slide. Last year in January, we really made some major announcements that were a tipping point and acceleration for the industry. We announced our most ambitious goal yet to become carbon neutral in our global products and operations by 2040. We also announced our plan to eliminate tailpipe emissions from new light-duty vehicles by 2035. And to truly do our part in helping to curb our environmental impact and limit global warming, our ambitions are rooted in climate science, and we have set science-based targets that have been approved and are set to the most stringent goals of the Paris Agreement, and that will track our progress going forward. So absolutely committed to make an impact on the world and make this transition a very positive one. Go to the next slide. So how are we going to achieve our carbon neutral goal? We're going to focus on decarbonizing our portfolio by shifting to EVs or other zero emissions vehicle technology. By the end of 2025, we'll offer more than 30 all-electric models globally, and make 40% of our models in the US will be battery electric vehicles. We've made major announcements around investment. We've investing over $35 billion in electric and autonomous vehicles in the next 5 years. And that's an increase of the original $20 billion that we had planned even before the pandemic. So we continue to increase our commitment in this space. And then to further reduce our own emissions, if you look at our overall carbon footprint for GM, over 75% of our carbon footprint is the customer usage of our vehicles, our scope 3 emissions. But due to our scale, our scope 1 and 2 are still very large. So it's an area that we've focused on for a long time. Last year, we announced that we will source 100% renewable energy to power all of our US facilities by 2025 and our global sites by 2035. That acceleration to 2025 for US was actually, our original goal was 2050 just 5 years ago. So you can see how fast things are changing here. And as we continue to dig into what we can do to accelerate our ambitions and our commitments, we continue to find ways to do that. So we're very excited about the progress that we've made in this space. I'll go to the next slide. So recently in January, we made actually what was our biggest announcement, our single announcement ever of investment in a single day. We've invested significant resources in manufacturing and infrastructure to achieve our vision of this all-electric future and really maintain US global competitiveness as well. We're investing billions of dollars in both US manufacturing and jobs. These investments you can see here this year include $154 million in Western New York to renovate our Lockport facility, to purchase and install new machinery and equipment that will produce the stator module, a key component for our electric motors. Orion Assembly made a major commitment there to produce our new electric trucks, which will create more than 2,300 new jobs and retain over 1,000 current jobs. And then in partnership with LG Energy Solutions, who's our partner in battery cell manufacturing, we announced a major investment in Lansing for our third Ultium facility to build battery cells here in Michigan, which again will create over 1,700 new jobs. So that's our third US manufacturing battery cell facility. So we're really excited to see how this transition is happening fast and very quickly here in the US. Go to the next slide. So talk a little bit about our vision and our approach. One of the things we are very committed to at our company is not just what we do, but it's how we do it. And our values as a company are very important to us and really core to everything that we do as a company. We're challenging ourselves and our supplier partners to evolve and really raise the standards every day. It's about, our values for customers, excellence, relationships, and seeking truth. And the framework for what we're doing from a sustainability standpoint really is rooted back to the UN Global Compact, again, which aligns very well with our values. We're a signatory on that. And it's both a mindset and it's an evolution in our cultural commitment to what we do, and then really a shared partnerships with our suppliers. On the next slide. So a little bit, I guess, deeper into our roadmap towards sustainability, or I'd say roadmap of sustainability with our supply chain. It's not just about the environmental. I think we all know that this has become more than an environmental issue. And as we focus on ESG, environmental, social, and governance, we're really doing that, again, in partnership with our supply base. We talk a lot about everybody in our vision and our mission of this EV transition. And it really is about everybody coming along with us. We know we can't do this alone. And so we're working hand in hand with our suppliers to maintain the highest level of ethics and compliance with strong governance associated with that, whether it be from farms and mines to our tier 1s and 2s. We really have set high expectations for our supply base and working closely with them to make sure that this transition does stay rooted in these goals and these values. We're moving with a strong sense of urgency. We know we don't have extra time. In fact, as you see in our announcements, we continue to accelerate that transition in our original plans, whether it be our renewable energy goal or some of the manufacturing commitments we've made to accelerate the availability of our vehicles and our product line as well. And we're setting ambitious goals and timelines for our suppliers, reach out and support them to get where they need to be on this transition as well. It's really critical for us that they make this a sustainable transition and that they're focused on a more sustainable future also. As we look at the entire value chain, we've made some announcements and some partnerships. Actually, last week, I had the opportunity to go out to Lithium Valley in California and visit with our supplier, Controlled Thermal Resources, where we've secured local and low-cost lithium here in the United States. That'll be produced with direct extraction process that results in a smaller physical footprint and really has a more sustainable process than is done anywhere. First stages of this are expected to begin yielding lithium in 2024. So really exciting to see that, again, that transition happen here in the United States. We have a strategic supplier agreement with Wolfspeed on silicon carbide, which will help from device solutions for our EV programs. It'll enable more efficient EV propulsion systems and lead to extended EV range. That's launching in early 22, the state-of-the-art facility. And then even when they talk about another one is on magnets. We've working with BAC, a leading global producer of the advanced magnet materials, which will build a plant in the United States that will manufacture permanent magnets for electric motors, again, for the EVs. So a lot of work happening in the supply base. Again, you can see our approach here where we're really focused on the end-to-end and make sure that the entire process is looked at from a sustainability eye, and that our vision and our goals are aligned, all deeply rooted in our vision of zero emissions, zero crashes, and zero congestion. So that's all I had to talk to today. Appreciate you inviting me here to tell a little bit about GM's story and and our vision of an all-electric future. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Randy, my video is also disabled, but I do have a couple questions for you, Kristen. The first being GM has committed, oh, all right, there's my video. Excuse me. GM has committed to ambitious sustainability goals. What were the types of challenges your company faced as you identified these goals? How did you and your GM colleagues go about determining the science-based targets for your greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah, so it's certainly challenging, right? I mean, these are long-term goals, and as a company that's rooted in technical and manufacturing and engineering and science, as an engineer myself, right? I'm used to liking things that have a black and white answer, and in some cases, with these goals that are so far off, we don't know necessarily how to get there from today or tomorrow. You know, I should say from today to the future. But as engineers, we're trained to solve problems, and this is just the biggest problem that we have in front of us, and what's happening to the climate, and our ability to have an impact on that is very important. So if you think, even as I mentioned, our renewable energy goal, when we first set it, we said, okay, by 2050, we're going to get there. And at that point in time, we had no idea how we would get there. Well, as we dig into it and start working with our partners in the utilities and other things that we can do internally from an energy efficiency standpoint, we found, wow, we could do that a lot faster than we had originally anticipated. So we first accelerated it to 2035. And then, you know, a couple of years later, we looked a little deeper, and it's like, you know, we can do it even faster. And so I think the most challenging thing in this space is really making that initial commitment and then just starting to work to see how you can get there. And it's really the conversation we're having with our suppliers is, we know you don't have all the I's dotted and T's crossed today, but we're confident that working together, we can find the solutions to get there in the long term.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. Another question, how does GM assist its suppliers in measuring and calculating their emissions or progress towards sustainability goals?
Yeah, so measuring and tracking, for anybody in the field, certainly knows that it's not simple. You know, there's, whether it be the various tools that are available to do that internally, or the various rankings and ratings or agencies that are out there, you know, to assist with that. So I think the good news is that there are tools available and people that can help. We partner with our suppliers to use both the CDP reporting as well as EcoVadis. It's important to have some standards out there so that we can aggregate the data and help understand what the impact is to our overall footprint as we look at it. Again, I said 75% of our carbon footprint is the customer usage of our vehicles, but the next largest chunk is our supply chain. And so we want to make sure that we're working with them to address that piece and again, to address their carbon footprint. I think the uniqueness about this field, I've spent my entire career in product development. And so to come into this space, the thing that I really enjoy about it is it's very collaborative. You know, we are all trying to accomplish the same goal, which is a more sustainable planet and a better future for all of us. And so I think the competition goes to the side a little bit, and we just kind of work towards that common goal.
Yeah, thank you. Very exciting. And finally, last question. Having been through this journey of setting goals, measuring emissions, etc., for a large and complex organization such as GM, do you have advice for a small manufacturer just starting its journey on where to begin?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can look at your overall carbon footprint and understand where your biggest opportunities are, but don't ignore the small ones, right? We've been working at General Motors for a long time on our energy efficiency and waste and water and the traditional environmental sense. And again, even though it was small in the total scope, it still has a significant impact. And pull your employees in. There's a lot of passion around this topic, and I think everybody's wants to be part of the solution and be surprised at the great ideas that employees can come up with. We started a kind of a sustainability ambassador program where employees get together once a month on, volunteer type of process where they share ideas, share stories, both personal and professional. And it's really exciting to see some of the things that have come out of that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. It's very interesting. Now I will turn it over to Kelly Preston, President of Capital Steel and Wire from Mason, Michigan, and Fred Render, Director of Manufacturing, also in Mason, Michigan. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Preston, and I am the president owner of Capital Steel and Wire. We are a manufacturer and supplier of hot roll and cold drawn steel bar and wire. I would consider Capital Steel and Wire a mid-sized manufacturer. We have one corporate office and 3 manufacturing facilities across Michigan and Ohio. But for today's purposes, we're going to focus on one of our manufacturing facilities located in Mason, Michigan, specifically Vevay Township. About a year and a half ago, my director of manufacturing, who you're going to meet in a minute, Fred Render, and I were walking this particular facility, really just looking at ways, looking at our vision, future expansion, just looking at what we want to do with that facility in the future. And this particular facility has a very large open green space on the west side of the property. And I was really intrigued by what that green space could offer us and what we could do, how we could use that open space to really create a win-win situation for our company. After doing a lot of research and probably a lot of extensive thinking, I found that there's not a lot of manufacturing facilities our size that are running off of solar power and ultimately reducing their carbon footprint. But we did decide to pursue the possibilities and ultimately create something that would be unique to our industry and differentiate us from our competitors. We wanted to create something that would be positive, not only for our company, for our employees, but for the environment and our community in general. So with that, I will introduce Fred Render, who is our Director of Manufacturing, who can really take you through the process of how we got this started and completed the project. Fred?
Thanks, Kelly. Well, good morning. My name is Fred Render. I'm the Director of Manufacturing with Capital Steel and Wire. As Kelly said, my role and responsibility here at Capital is to oversee our 3 manufacturing divisions, 2 in Mason, Michigan, and 1 in Cleveland, Ohio. Randy, if you could go ahead and pull up the slides, we'll go ahead and start maybe on slide 2. So as Kelly said, about a year and a half ago, we sat down and took a look at sustainability in manufacturing and really what would it take for us with a goal to reduce our carbon footprint by utilizing renewable energy. So we took a look at our 3 plants and really chose to pilot the program at our Eden Road facility in Mason due to the large open field or large open green space that's in front of the plant that you can see in the picture below. To start the project, we needed a baseline. So how much energy was our plant using on an annual basis? And we found that to be right around 135,000 kilowatt hours per year. So we sent that out to bid to multiple companies, and the bids came back in, and we ended up going with Harvest Solar out of Jackson, Michigan. They designed a solar array to produce up to 99 kilowatt hours per 99 kilowatt hours per hour with an estimated year 1 production of 130,000 kilowatt hours. So we were looking at somewhere around, call it 90 to 95% offset at the time, running a single shift operation. The system specs that Harvest Solar came back with was to install 258 Canadian solar panels, hooked up to 2 DC power inverters, which collect the energy from the solar panels, and then it converts it to usable service for our plant, feeds into our 480 volt 3-phase system, and also allowed us to interconnect consumers' energy. So in times that we're producing large amounts of energy, we can backfeed or get credit from consumers' energy through our bill. And then in times that we're, if it's cloudy and we're not producing as much energy, where our consumption is outrunning production, then we can, feed off of consumers' energy and really not miss any power disruption in the plant. It's a seamless process. Next slide. Here's a look at our plant. Kind of like what Kelly was talking about in the beginning is we took a look at this space. So our Eden Road facility is an L-shaped. And then what we did is when we were evaluating, the solar systems, we took a look at roof mounted systems and really just found out that we weren't able to install as many panels on the roofs due to roof load. So our energy production would be lower. So that's why we went with a ground mounted solar system, which is depicted in blue in the center of the drawing. From there, we went to Bay Township for approval, and then they came back with setbacks that we had to adhere to in terms of how far the solar panels have to be set back from the road and from our property lines. So with some adjustments, with Harvest Solar's engineering, we're able to come up with the, this kind of diagonal type of design where the solar array actually gets shorter and shorter if the further and further south you go. And that's to adhere to the 300-foot setback from the road. Another thing that I'd like to talk about too is in the planning stages of this project, we were able to really look at future expansion of the plant. And by doing that, we offset the solar array 223 foot from the edge of our building. So what that will allow us to do is be able to expand another 180 feet to the west and still have, setbacks from the solar field, power lines, and the property lines themselves. So a lot of planning in the beginning stages in terms of, for future plant expansion, and then also for, future solar expansion as well. Since we went with a ground mounted solar array this time around, we could expand our solar energy production by installing more roof panels in the future if needed, as more energy consumption or demand comes online. Next slide. This next slide really just shows the installation process itself. So the step one with installation was to Harvest Solar brought in a big pile driver, and they took galvanized steel I-beam, and then they drove that into the ground. So you can see all the posts that are in the ground. From there, they put together the framework, that the solar panels would be mounted to. And then in the center picture, all the way to the bottom, you'll see the finished product, the 3 rows, 258 panels, and then the 2 DC converters to the right, which collect that energy. Next slide. So system benefits and results. So overall, it took us, from the start of planning to coming online a little over a year to get going. The system cost was $258,000. At the time that we moved forward with this project, we were able to offset this cost with government tax credits and grants, which totaled 51%. 51%. So it was a big number for us. 26% was through federal tax credit, and then the remaining 25% was through a USDA REAP grant, or Rural Energy for America program grant. So with that, we dealt with Rick Vanderbeek out of Lansing. He was our USDA representative, and he really assisted us with the application process itself, then going all the way through the grant award. But it was a really seamless type of process, and allowed for a lot of savings for us to be able to make this investment, and move forward with that. So after the 51% credits, our return on investment is going to be approximately 6 years. So annually, we're projecting savings of 65 to 70% in electrical costs, with the ability to track solar energy generation and consumption in real time through eGauge smart meters. So on the inverters themselves that collect the energy, we're able to click on that eGauge hyperlink in what it does from anywhere. And what that does is in a real-time process, it'll show us how much energy we're using and how much energy we're generating. It also gives us reports on a monthly basis as far as how much energy we produce in in that time frame, so we can double check against our consumers' energy bills to make sure that we're getting the proper credits that we should be. Our system went online November 23rd, 2021, and so we're 2.5 months into it, and we've saved over $1,000 in our consumers' energy bill, which has been huge. Other company benefits, like Kelly said, in the steel industry, there's not a lot of companies out there that are doing running solar programs right now. So it was really kind of an opportunity for us to be on the forefront of that, which has not only helped in the industry itself, but also with our customers dealing with automotive and the further and further steps towards energy independency. So we just took that first step. It also helps too with our employees that we hire, showing them that we're environmentally responsible, and making these types of investments to reduce our total carbon footprint. Overall, the project was great, and that's pretty much all I had. So I'll turn it on over to any questions and questions that you might have.
Thank you. We received several. The first was the line of arborvitae around two sides of the solar array for beautification or to hide solar panels, or more of a functional wind snow break.
Sure. So dealing with Vevay Township, we went to them with the design, and part of their requirements was for us to finish off the solar array was to install the arborvitaes as more of a screening, from the road. So just more like beautification, for people that are driving down the road.
Gotcha. And did you use in-house expertise, or did you use outside consultants to develop your plan?
So we used outside consultants, through the bid process. So just dealing directly with the solar manufacturers themselves, taking a look at the types of product that they offered, return on investment, energy generation, and also plant consumption. So those were all factors that played into our final decision in who we went with on that. So
great. And what was the driving factor for installing solar? Was it lower energy costs, sustainability goals, or something else?
The driving factor on the solar was really to utilize the green space at the plant, and we just thought it was an excellent opportunity for us to be able to use that property that we had in front of us and really use that to generate energy, which was awesome.
Yeah, very. Are your customers aware of your use of solar power, and is this a competitive advantage for your business?
Absolutely. So we've promoted that on our website and through our customers, just to let them know what we're doing. So it's definitely a good thing, and especially with our automotive customers that we supply to, that they can say, hey, we buy from Capital Steel and Wire, and they've gone down this road for energy sustainability. So
great. Do you have energy storage on site, or how do you address your power needs when there is no solar power?
So that's a great question. When we're producing more energy than we're consuming, then the extra energy goes back to consumers through credit. And what consumers does is on a monthly basis, they send us a report that shows us how much energy backfed into their system, and then how much that credit equates to in our monthly bill. And then we're able to match that up to the monthly bill. And conversely, if we're not producing the amount of energy that we're consuming, then we just draw off the consumer's grid like we normally would. So
cool. All right, and last question. Are you planning to expand to the other two facilities? What would your total savings be?
So that's a great question, and we'll know more this year as the results, continue to come in from our Eden Road plant. But we've already started to take a look at that, specifically at our Hall Road, which is a much larger facility with higher energy needs, and where the solar panels would go and what that would do for us. But we're going to see how this plays out at Eden Road, and then we'll make future decisions based off of those results at Hall Road. But from what we've seen so far, we're very pleased and very excited about the ability to continue to expand in through solar energy production and really reducing our carbon footprint.
Absolutely. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now I will turn it over to Stephen Holty, Sustainability Leader of Hemlock Semiconductor Operations from Hemlock, Michigan. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Let me share my screen. All right, you see me and hear me okay?
We do.
My name is Stephen Holty, and I'm a sustainability leader for Hemlock Semiconductor. And today I'd like to introduce you a little bit to HSC, or Hemlock Semiconductor, provide you our energy intensive industrials perspective on decarbonization, and really help understand the Michigan market value of why we're decarbonizing as a society as well as an industry, and help plant the seed. That to reach the 2050 Paris Agreement, we need to really understand what our industrials' big pinch points are going to be. And just to give you the heads up about on-site thermal energy needs, it's going to be the biggest and toughest nut to crack for Consumers Energy, DTE, Hemlock Semiconductor, companies that need on-site thermal needs. So what we do at Hemlock Semiconductor is transforming people's lives by energizing and connecting our world. And I like to show people where we're located. Hemlock Semiconductor makes the bottom left-hand corner of the trapezoid in the Great Lakes Bay region of Midland Bay City and Saginaw, about 2 hours to the north and west of Detroit. We're approximately 1,200 employees, $1 billion annual revenue. To the north of me, directly to the north of me where I'm sitting, we have upwards of $3 billion of assets that we've invested over our lifetime. And what we do, we have a superpower to create, with this industrial plant, this really cool asset to create polysilicon, which is that U-rod on the right. That polysilicon, the supply chain is, we take quartz, which is silicon dioxide, and we don't actually take it in our supply chain upstream of us. Quartz is mined out of the earth. It's one of the most mineable minerals and one of the largest volume mined minerals on earth. And it goes through a smelter where we take the metallurgical grade silicon, 99% silicon, so 2 nines of purity, which would be 1 penny out of $1 impurity. And our superpower at HSC is creating the hyper pure polysilicon, so up to 11 nines of purity. And we actually, through the MMA, we actually won Michigan's Coolest Thing Award this past year. And that's our hyper pure polysilicon. And so that's really our superpower, is to go from 2 nines of purity to up to 11 nines of purity. And how we do that is through chemical vapor deposition. Chemical vapor deposition is that reactor that you see on the left. We use the most electricity in Michigan. So we put electricity through our reactor, and silicon is deposited onto the hot surface of a slim rod, growing the slim rod into the large rod off on the right. And that product then gets broken up into chunks, and we sell into the electronics supply chain. And our primary customers, most people haven't heard of. They pull the ingot wafer, but everybody has heard of the Intels, the Apples, and the Dells, which the computer chips that we help produce go into. And we have, out of Hemlock, Michigan, approximately 30% market share of that electronic supply chain. The solar supply chain, we started back a little over a decade ago with 20% market share, where our polysilicon was going into ingot wafer, and it was going into the solar panels that we've heard discussed earlier. And then back in about 2013, 2010 to 2013, tariffs were imposed, trade wars, and we stopped being able to produce solar going into the supply chain, or polysilicon going into the solar supply chain. And we really started paying more attention to the end user, which is part of our sustainability story. Is through 2 administrations at the federal level, we tried to remove the tariffs of being able to sell solar into the supply chain. And we found that it just wasn't working. So we really need to tap into what the rest of the supply chain was looking for. And they were looking for decarbonization. They were looking for cleaner solar. And we get to be a part of that story. So our primary competitors for the solar supply chain have been out of Asia and in China. And we have been making sure everybody outside of Michigan and outside of the US understands that our solar that we produce right here in Michigan is lower carbon than the solar that many have been buying. Not all solar panels are created equal. We help form the Ultra Low Carbon Solar Alliance, which is an alliance of manufacturers of solar outside of, or just low carbon, and they happen to all be outside of China. And that is our strategy, figuring out how to bring value to the marketplace. And I want to amplify to Michigan that we help bring value by having decarbonized electricity and by having these types of forums. So what is our remaining carbon footprint at Hemlock Semiconductor? So a small 10–20% fraction of our carbon footprint is from natural gas, and that's the thermal heat that we require to run our process. To get to ultra pure, to get to 11 nines of purity, we require many distillation steps. And distillation requires heat at the bottom of the distillation columns and cooling at the top of the distillation column. So that's our primary need in terms of scope 1 carbon emissions inside our fence line. Now, we are lucky at Hemlock Semiconductor because we are highly electrified already. So the vast majority of our scope 2 is from electricity of our carbon footprint. We're also lucky because we've been advocating, and the rest of the world's been advocating, and Consumers Energy and DTE have, here in Michigan, have been listening and have been helping us reduce over the next 10–20 years the carbon footprint of our electricity. But they will also have the tough nut to crack of their base load, which today is going to be natural gas in the coming 10–15 years. So over the next 30 years, to get to the UN goal, as our electricity grid continues to go towards zero and we make more and more innovations to understand how the electricity companies, how the utilities can fully decarbonize, we expect to fully decarbonize our electricity as well. But the tough nut to crack then, as we grow, is going to be our on-site thermal needs, because our natural gas, if we do nothing differently, is going to grow. So our carbon footprint in 2050, if we don't start now looking at our dependency on natural gas, we will end up with roughly 1/4 to 35% of our embodied carbon as we continue to grow over the next 30 years. So that's what I wanted to highlight, and how we are going to address our industrial thermal needs. In addition to purchasing renewable energy power to lower our electricity, in addition to energy efficiency projects, our industrial thermal need, really cracking that nut, we've been participating in the My Healthy Climate Plan. The governor's put together a council on climate solutions, and I actually was nominated and got to help co-chair the energy intensive industry work groups. And we discussed our thermal needs at length, and we've talked collaboration with the utilities, and we talked with the American Chemistry Council, we've talked with the DOE. Renewable Thermal Collaborative has been quite instrumental in understanding where industry needs to go. The Global Electronics Council, I'll touch on them on the next slide, as well as SEBA, Clean Energy Buyers Institute and Alliance. The ACEEE has come and presented to our My Healthy Climate Plan and to the energy intensives to help us truly understand how to crack that industrial thermal need. And finally, as I mentioned, the Ultra Low Carbon Solar Alliance. So here is a snapshot of where we're at in 2021 with our scope 1 and scope 2. Greenhouse gas, CO2 in terms of metric tons. As we grow over the next 10 years, we should see, if nothing else were to change, we would see our greenhouse gases going up around 2 million metric tons with growth. But luckily, and we've been advocating as a society, as a company for many, many years now, our electrical grid is cleaning up right here in Michigan. So that's a tremendous competitive advantage as we install more and more solar as companies and as utility. Purchasing power and renewable energy is going to be a large part of reducing our corporate carbon footprints, as well as energy efficiency projects. And getting those grants and going after capital and continuing to beat on the drum of energy efficiency will help us get our greenhouse gases reduced over the next 10 years. But then remembering the final nut is going to be making sure that we're all focused on those fossil fuels that we've become dependent on as industry for the past 100 years. And I want to touch on our alliance. Part of the reason why we have been so successful at really framing how to make solar more and more green is we've gotten together with an alliance. And we are getting together and working with the Global Electronics Council, or GEC, to expand the Electronics Product Environmental Assessment Tool, or EPEAT. EPEAT has been so far a wonderful, wonderful tool. It hasn't had a lot of carbon. It has not included carbon to a high degree. So we are adding carbon in terms of purchasing solar or photovoltaics. We expect to launch that expanded eco-label of EPEAT, which includes carbon, mid-2022, so later this year. I've been participating in the technical committee where we're writing the rules and making sure that the life cycle assessment is detailed and well understood and using the best technology available. And the idea is to give buyers of solar confidence that they're buying better solar, as not all solar panels are created equal. And we believe this gives Michigan a competitive advantage, and we're going to continue making sure that people know about it. And it'll also help grow low carbon solar manufacturing through market signals, so that when buyers put out RFPs for solar panels, they can be asking the questions, what is your embodied carbon? And what does your solar panel look like from a life cycle analysis and carbon intensity versus other solar panels? And that is the majority of what I wanted to cover today. And what I wanted to leave you with in terms of the My Healthy Climate Plan is we in industry need clean fuels. As we electrify, we definitely need to understand where there's thermal needs, what those natural gas and other carbon or other fossil fuel replacements will be. So let's, as we do our carbon accounting, make sure that we understand that pinch point over the next 20, 30 years. And obviously energy efficiency. Energy efficiency will continue to be important for all of our industrials. And finally, make sure that you're buying clean. Make sure you're asking the questions when you're buying solar, when you're buying any sort of renewable energies, that you're asking the questions. How was this material, how was this equipment produced? What's the embodied carbon? And is it clean? Make sure you understand your options, because not all solar panels are created equal. And with that, I thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Yes, we did receive a few questions. The first one, as your company was evaluating where you could reduce your energy consumption, what area offered the most surprising opportunity?
The most surprising opportunity. That's a really good one. We use the most electricity in the US, or excuse me, in Michigan. So we're highly energy intense in terms of electricity. And we put in wasted electricity recovery. And in doing so, we increased energy efficiency year over year, like 10% year over year back when we installed those. The biggest surprise for me, looking back at the last 30 years, is after we added those, we hadn't optimized them. Because fossil fuels were so cost competitive, we hadn't necessarily looked at our fossil fuel use to make steam. So fossil fuels and natural gas coming to our plant was so cost competitive, we hadn't looked at it. I was surprised that we had a lot of optimization in our process that we could do to save even more natural gas than we did by putting in that waste heat recovery. It was a big surprise, and it required me to be put into this role as sustainability leader and do the carbon accounting to find that surprise. And it almost felt like I was lifting up a rock that hadn't been looked at for years and said, have you guys seen this? And my peers out in the plant said, we hadn't thought about that. And it was because I was looking for carbon, not cost.
Interesting.
I'm going to save cost and carbon with those types of projects.
Wow, fascinating. It's really rewarding.
Yes, it is.
What tools did HSC use to help evaluate potential areas of energy waste reduction?
The number one tools that we've used have been accumulating for decades. We have been data mining and using digital tools to put our plant and our plant energy use in databases for decades now. Our plant actually got ahead of the computer generation. We were putting our energy use into databases before all of our employees had computers and laptops. So before 2000. So I have the data for energy use well before 2000. And so that's quite exciting. So we have that as a baseline. In the last 3 years, we've partnered with TIBCO, and we have the Spotfire tool, which is a data analytics engine, so that instead of downloading all of this data into Excel, which would often start to crash because we had so much data, now we have a data analytics tool that we can study and analyze and look at visualizations and get insights to our data almost instantaneous. So the tools of digitalization, getting our energy data in databases, and then being able to see it with the latest and greatest analytics technology would be the biggest tools.
Very cool. Besides energy, are there other areas HSC prioritizes to improve its sustainability practices?
Yes, one of our Obviously energy efficiency, but another one of our bedrocks now of carbon is doing our life cycle analysis so that we understand exactly which levers affect our carbon intensity. So we know energy is the number one. Number two and number three are feedstocks that go into our product, which are, for those who do the carbon accounting at your companies. I talked a lot about scope 1 and scope 2. So our feedstocks, which come in from where we purchase, are our scope 3s. So we know how important it is where our feedstocks are being produced and their grids and how clean their grids are. So we are talking with them and our suppliers about their carbon intensities and making sure that they understand that our downstream customers care, so they need to care. So those are pretty big levers, our scope 3s. And I'll also say that waste ends up being a smaller carbon intensity, the waste that we send, because we've been hitting waste and we recycle so much that we don't have a lot of waste coming out of our plant. But there's always opportunities, and reducing all waste to its lowest environmental impact is one of our goals. It's not going to be a big carbon intensity hit for us. However, it's the right thing to do for the planet. And our people do get energized about it, which is really cool. I give them all of the big data about how to move the chains in terms of carbon, and our employees want to recycle the cups that they see. They want to make sure that we're using, you know, coffee mugs that they can wash instead of polystyrene, which they know goes into a landfill. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how HSC empowers all of its employees to suggest ways to the for the company to be more sustainable and efficient? You already touched on it a little bit, but anything else?
Yes. I've been tasked with laying the groundwork for just that. At first, when sustainability leader was announced as a job, nobody really knew what it was. And when I took the role, after 23 years of helping to run the plant as a chemical engineer and as a leader, it was assumed that Stephen is going to do all the projects for sustainability. I was going to move all the chains. And I think that's kind of a natural assumption. My role is to set up the systems so that we can value carbon, we can value the people, the planet, and prosperity, the triple bottom line. We can value our ESGs, environmental, social, and governance, and that we can set up our systems so that all of our leaders and all of our people can do projects, can move the chains, and have them valued. So that's what I'm doing to make sure that all of the people in the company know that they can be a part of moving the chains with me. So we have the blueprint. For years, the blueprint was that's our management tool for getting the executives on the same page to get the company running in the same direction. And we've got carbon intensity on our blueprint. We have our green print, which is how we are generating pull through demand to make sure people know that that not all solar is created equal. And that is another way that we're empowering all of our employees. We write down what the direction is, and carbon intensity is definitely part of it. Energy efficiency is part of it.
Great. And last question, how much more efficient were you, how much more efficiency were you able to recover? Are you able to create a digital twin of your facility?
Our CTO actually talked to me about digital twin the very first time that I got in front of him. The digital twinning is definitely on its way, and we have Aspen modeling, and then we have Spotfire modeling. And so digital twin is on its way.
Cool.
What was the first part of that question? I want to make sure I got it.
How much more efficiency were you able to recover?
So we've got 30 years of efficiency. We had, back when we put in our energy recovery about 20 years ago, like I said, 10% year over year. Then for 15 years, we were a almost 1% year over year energy efficiency company. And what my executives have challenged me to do is make sure that we get to 1% year over year, which means we should be setting 2 to 3% year over year goals. And as a benchmark, if you were going to stamp your product Energy Star, you would have to be on average 2% year over year. And we are looking at becoming Energy Star partners.
Great. Well, that wraps up the questions. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really fascinating and inspiring to hear all of these presentations. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
All right. And again, I'm Caroline Lethan, MMA's Director of Environmental and Regulatory Policy. Please remember to add your questions using the chat or Q&A buttons on Zoom. And first, let me say how much we welcome and appreciate this chance to partner with the Nature Conservancy to find ways for our manufacturers to deal with the coming pressures to address emissions from regulations, customers, and a younger labor force more committed to sustainability. I also want to thank Kristen, Kelly, Fred, Stephen, Kathy, and Madhu for being with us today. There will be, again, a longer Q&A period available at the end, so please feel free to submit your questions in the chat or Q&A function. So I know we're running a little short on time. I was supposed to be discussing the draft My Healthy Climate Plan. So I think in the interest of time, I want to remind everyone that it's available for review now. And then it is meant to be a living document to help the state kind of achieve the goals that we've discussed throughout this webinar today. It has key focus areas, including energy production, transportation, focusing on our business and home, the actual buildings, of course, environmental justice, and then leadership and innovation moving forward. So MMA has appreciated the opportunities for participation the council has allowed while drafting the plan, and looks forward to working with the council and Eagle as the document is adjusted moving forward and obviously implemented as well. So again, thank you. Madhu will give us more information in a moment on coming sessions, and I do not see any additional questions. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Madhu.
Thank you, Caroline. It is our pleasure to partner with the MMA as well. It's a great topic, and we know it's not an easy journey, but it's a very important journey, this sustainability journey, and it's very important nonetheless. We hope that you'll join us for our final session, which will be on March 15th at 11 a.m. Our speakers that we have for that session will tap into the resources to help you start your own research on improving sustainability or continue as you move forward in more energy efficiency and other sustainability goals. We have Dr. Volker Sick, who's director of the Global CO2 Initiative at the University of Michigan, joining us as a panelist, as well as Mike Trupos, who's the managing director at Foresight Management, and Aaron Johnson, the area vice president at Waste Management. You can register for these sessions under the events tab on the MMA website and look for the seminar on sustainable manufacturing. We've also got, I think we'll put the registration information in the chat. Recordings of this webinar and the other webinars are also available on MMA's online learning center on the webs. And again, thank you again for joining us. The Nature Conservancy is really proud to offer these. We really believe that this is an important issue as we move forward. So thank you so much.